So good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now we are waiting for Minister Kuleba to join us. It will take a few moments. Yes. So let me start to explain to you why I decided to frame this discussion in the way that we should talk about unity as a strategic asset. Ukraine would have not prevailed without Poland, without the United States, without the coalition of the free world supporting Ukraine for all this time, providing hardware, providing financial resources, but also providing absolutely crucial assistance in terms of humanitarian aid. This fantastic coalition of countries, of the goodwill, of the political will, was driven by the common assessment of the threat coming from Russia, the common assessment of what's going on, that Russia violated international law, violated all foundations upon which international rule-based order was founded, grounded. So I think it was one of the most important condition upon which Ukrainian relative success was built. So starting from that, I'm going to go into more details because this coalition was in move. If we imagine what Ukraine could have achieved a year ago, hadn't been supplied by the kind of the hardware it's getting now, it's probably it's very likely that this war could have ended long ago, or at least Ukrainian success would have been much more farther territorially. So that was the reason why I decided to talk with two ministers, two foreign affairs ministers, about strategic unity as the utility of unity. I don't know how we are, where we are, with Minister Kuleba is already connected. So I would like to welcome Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba. Thank you very much, Minister, for being with us, for contributing to the strategic arc. And I have just started to explain why we decided to talk about strategic utility of unity as a subject of our discussion. And I want you to take the floor first, but let me just sum up what I have already said. During the last speech in Warsaw, President Biden mentioned his first conversation with President Zelensky on 24th of February 2022. And he said that in a certain moment of this conversation, phone conversation they had, President Biden asked President Zelensky what I can do for you. And President Zelensky responded, Mr. President, please form the coalition of democratic countries supporting our defensive war against Russia's aggression. My first question to you, Mr. Kuleba, would be, How do you assess the efficiency of this coalition? How you assess the unity behind Ukraine?
Thank you. First of all, I regret not being able to be live in person today with you, but I appreciate the opportunity to get connected online. Second, I want to explain my outfit. We celebrate the day of the national Vyshyvanka shirt in Ukraine, so I'm proudly wearing it today. And thirdly, unity. Yes, today many Ukrainians wear Vyshyvankas, not because there is an instruction to wear them, but because there is a sense of unity in the society, be it the emphasis on our cultural identity, or be it the unity in opposing, repelling the Russian aggression. And without this unity, nothing would be possible. And when I take the issue of unity to the international stage, of course, when you fight against an enemy like Russia, when you tackle any global challenge like Russia is, or any other challenge that the world is facing at a global scale, you cannot win without unity. But this unity is required not only in words, but also in actions. And this is the difference between the 2014 and now. In 2014, when Russia was illegally annexing Crimea, there was unity in words, indeed. But there was no unity in actions. And this is why Russia succeeded. This is why it felt tempted to continue and to spill over the conflict to Donbas. And then years later to the entire Ukraine by launching large-scale invasion. Without unity, things would have been different. Fortunately, there is unity since last year, and we all do a lot of issues aside and united around one goal: common enemy. This is the only way how we can defeat the enemy, and this is why it is so essential to maintain unity. At the same time, we have, when it comes to a discussion on, for example, last year we had a discussion on granting Ukraine EU candidacy status. And some countries were telling us, some EU members were telling us, do not overemphasize the importance of this decision, because there is no unity in the European Union. And if you have to choose between exposing the lack of unity on the European perspective for Ukraine and maintaining unity without granting candidacy status, but with continued support on other tracks, choose the second option. And we thought it was completely wrong, because we saw no contradiction between between exposing differences among friends for the sake of reaching unity. And this is why when Ukraine was granted EU candidacy status, everyone in the European Union celebrated the achievement of this unity. We are experiencing the same story now with regard to the NATO membership, when we are asked not to push too hard because it will expose unity. So unity is crucial, it is important, but it should not serve, but the lack of unity should not be used as an excuse for not making crucial decisions. Because if there is time to make crucial decisions and build unity, it is now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuleba. Now I would like to turn to Foreign Minister of Poland, Zbigniew Rau. Well, during the last year, Poland has become or played a role both a unity broker and unity breaker. You know, numbers of times your minister, President Duda, Prime Minister Morawiecki, tried to shape this unity behind Ukraine in a very active way. proposing sending tanks, suggesting that Patriots should be sent to Ukraine, not necessarily to Poland, then about Leopards. So actually, how to find the right balance between being a leader in shaping unity and to introduce some breaking pieces element.
Okay, I suppose that the simplest way to proceed is to do the right thing. And then, when you convince what is the right thing to do, then you can think about the unity or coalition of those who would like to do the right thing together with you. But I understand that we are talking about the unity vis-à-vis Russian imperialism and the unity behind the Ukrainian right to enjoy the national independence, state sovereignty, and territorial integrity. So, first of all, I suppose we have to bear in mind the fact that on these issues, we are obviously, we the West, or we the free world, we are obviously on the collision course with Russia, because Russia's aim is to divide us on every possible issue. Russia is considering us, considering the West, as a threat to its imperial identity. So, regardless whether we are talking about the present context of Russian aggression on Ukraine or any other context in which we can talk about the relations between the West and Russia, Russia's objective is to divide us and to look for such natural divisions within our camp, or to just create them, because Russia is strong vis-à-vis us when we are divided. And as far as Ukraine is concerned, certainly every state that belongs to the, whether it's transatlantic community, European Union, or just the free world in general, every country that is part of it has every reason to be very proud of the level of unity we have managed to reach behind Ukraine. But what is very important here is to draw a distinction between the unity of declaration and unity of action. Of course, it's much easier to arrange or shape the unity of declaration. Just think about voting in the General Assembly of the United Nations. The overwhelming majority was ready to condemn the Russian invasion. But the other issue is to show unity in supporting Ukraine in every possible way that Ukraine can simply defend itself, because it's entitled to do that, given the provisions of the UN Charter, for example, right? So, and here we see already a serious division within all those who declared the unity, but are not ready in the same way to support Ukraine in every, let's say, way that Ukraine asks us to do so. Now, why is this difference? The difference is because the unity is not, the unity of action is not any kind of unity, in fact, is not an end in itself. Unity is an instrument of those who are ready to act together for a certain goal. So unity has to be goal-oriented. And if we assume that, we can show or indicate the criteria of success of those who act in the unanimous way. And now the question is how to create this kind of unity. Okay, you can look at the lowest common denominator of those who are who are not ready to do everything possible in order to achieve the goal that is the object of this unity. And there are others who would like to achieve much more. I will give you just an example. At the beginning of the war, at the beginning of the Russian aggression, I'm proud to say that Poland acted on the assumption that we have to help as much as possible and as soon as possible. There were our partners and allies who were acting on a different assumption, unfortunately, at that time. They were trying to help as little as possible and as late as possible. Could we talk about unity of these efforts? In a way, yes. But to what extent it was a goal-oriented unity? So, if we have to deal with this state of affairs, this kind of state of affairs, some of the members of the community that is presenting the unity in action has to take a more activist position, and exactly what we are doing. And I must say, you certainly recall the situation at the beginning of the aggression, when Poland offered to donate its jet fighters, the MiGs. It was, I suppose, the beginning of March.
Yes.
Last year. Well, and using your terminology, Slavek, we were not unity brokers, but at the beginning we were considered unity breakers, because the overwhelming majority of our friends and allies assumed that we went far too far. Some of them were afraid of a possibility of escalation of the conflict. Just to send jets there, it would be much too much. Then we declared, and we did it on our own, to donate more than 300 tanks. Soviet-made tanks, but still operational ones. So it was considered with some surprise. Yes.
Yes. Now I would like to turn to Minister Kuleba, because
where is he? Sorry. Hello.
And ask
Dmytro.
And ask him how he assessed this approach to unity, which actually, as as I understand, Minister Rau is about. He tried to explain the unity as a dynamic process, because if we imagine what kind of unity we had in 2014, or even a year ago, it was different kind of unity than we have now. So actually, what do you prefer? Do you prefer more countries to act as a unity brokers or unity breakers?
In the right direction, unity breakers, of course, yeah.
Well, it's It's a very good question because, you know, how many countries do you need to be united to win in the war? How many countries do you need to send weapons to you to be united in the decision to send one or another type of weapons, as Zbig just referred to the story with planes? How many countries do you need to get united to pass the UN General Assembly resolutions? And this list of questions can be continued, and there will be a different answer to each of these questions. And this is why unity is not the concept that is set in stone. It's evolving depending on the context when you seek unity. And you have to handle each situation in a different way. If I am to pass, even if you take one of the questions, for example, how many votes do you need to pass a good UN General Assembly resolution? The question of unity can be considered two ways. You all know that the stronger the language of the resolution is, the more difficult it gets for countries to support it. So you have to differentiate. You have to say, this is the resolution where I care for the number of votes cast in favor of it, and therefore I will make concessions on the language. But this, another resolution, it's more important to have strong language in it, even at the expense of the unity, which is on the number of votes that will be cast in favor of this resolution. It's the same on weapons. You know, unity on tanks implies one set of countries. Unity on planes may imply another set of countries. And unity on ammunition will imply a far broader number of countries. So unity is absolutely utile concept, but it has to be treated in every specific context with due regard to every element of a specific decision. And therefore, there is no universal answer. In principle, theoretically, the more united the world is, the better it is. But when you break this big unity into specific decisions, answers may vary. And diplomatically, it requires a lot of effort and wisdom to find answers to these questions. And that's what we're doing. And those countries who are united, for example, like Ukraine and Poland, we coordinate to make sure that we gain unity on every specific question, issue, in the proportion necessary for this, for the answer to this question to be effective, to be efficient. And this is actually where the space for diplomacy is. You know, to find the right balance and to strike the right balance of unity to make the most out of it.
Thank you very much. We have just achieved a great consensus between both ministers, between Poland and Ukraine. First, they told us that unity is a moving target, so it should be a more goal-oriented, but it is not written in the stone thing, and it should be that depending on the issue, this unity can be shaped or reshaped differently. So that's the experience of Poland and Ukraine during from the last year. My question to both of you, and it would be probably the last question, because time is running around. We have something like 10 minutes to go. What should be our next objective around which we should build a unity? Should it be Ukraine's membership into NATO, or should it be more assistance for Ukraine to do their job, to finish the war and deter Russia. So how you set the priorities around which this unity should be formed? Minister Rau.
Well, I believe object of our unity, the unity of the free world, from now on, should be our common goal of preserving the freedom and independence and democracy, all the countries all over the world that consider themselves free and democratic, and they want to stay this way. So, to achieve this goal, ideally, we need a well-functioning, rules-based world order. This is an ideal condition that we should work for. Is it very realistic? No ideal, even no utopia can be realistic. So, quite frankly, having this noble goal in mind, we should, first of all, support Ukraine to end this war in the way that is acceptable, first of all, to the Ukrainians, but there is no doubt in my mind that also the Ukrainians believe that it should be in agreement with the rules-based international order.
Does it mean also Ukraine being a part of NATO?
Certainly, because NATO has proved that this is the international institution, actually the only one at this scale designed to achieve this end, not only among its member states, but worldwide, simply by the example. Certainly, the same goes for the Ukraine membership in the European Union. But I do agree with Minister Kuleba, I agree with Dmytro, that obviously, when we take a look at these three goals, so obviously, unity in international relations is a very dialectical category. So it differs with the passage of time and the place where we want to apply it, and the goals we are going to achieve together. But the trick is that these three goals that I just outlined, that we should support in our common efforts, can be combined one with another. Okay? Now, the wisdom, the political wisdom is the order of things. What should be first? Certainly, the victorious end of this war. And then the membership of Ukraine in all these institutions of the free world, which Ukraine deserves to be part of.
Mr. Kuleba, Poland has been very consistent in its support for Ukraine's membership, both in the EU and in NATO. President Lech Kaczynski in 2008 in Bucharest summit was one of the leaders within the alliance, arguing in favor of accepting Ukraine into NATO. What would be your aim around which this unity should now be created?
Of course, I agree with Zbigniew that the largest issue that requires unity as broad as possible, is the understanding that Ukraine must win on the terms set by Ukraine. If countries accept this as the goal of their policies, then they will be making all the relevant decisions, and they will be making them fast. If you ask me to list other issues which require unity, where we are working right now as we have this discussion on building unity, it's definitely NATO membership, aviation coalition, non-exhaustion of sanctions, of the will to impose new sanctions, new strong sanctions on Russia. These are the areas which are absolutely essential to have unity on. There are many, many other issues, but if you want me to name the most critical ones, these are them.
So the one last question, and I would like both of you to provide us with very short answer. Is what would be your expectation from a NATO summit in Vilnius in regarding these aims, these goals mentioned by Minister Kuleba? What we should expect from the other leaders of NATO in Vilnius to deliver for Ukraine and to build or to move unity on new level? What should it be?
Well, first of all, we at the summit should show a lot of, first of all, respect and gratitude to our Ukrainian friends and partners, because in fact they are fighting and paying the highest price, fighting for the values which we all share. And I have to be very frank about it. Every person in our part of Europe is aware of the fact that they are fighting for our freedom. For our freedom. So this is the first thing that I suppose should be crystal clear at the summit. And the second issue, having said that, I would say should be the fact that first, let the Ukrainians state their expectations concerning the summit. And then, I can declare it, we are ready to support it.
Minister Kuleba, what do you expect from the leaders who are going to come to Vilnius, show unity of transatlantic area regarding Ukraine? What Ukraine needs from Vilnius?
Well, first, I fully align myself with previous speaker. Second, ideally, we would like to see in Vilnius, we would like to see a decision on defining a certain algorithm of Ukraine's accession, but it should not be a membership action plan. This is the story that is left behind. To cut, long story short, I think any step that the allies will be able to make towards Ukrainian membership in NATO will be welcome. And I'm saying it because I understand that the issue of unity in this specific case is very burning. It's very topical, and a lot of work needs to be done in the coming weeks to build this unity around this concept, around the idea of making a step towards membership.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our time ran out. Please join me in thanking both ministers for being with us. I would like to express my gratitude to all people who actually managed and helped us to make this conversation possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Kuleba. I hope that next year you will be, at first, Ukraine will be victorious. Second, you will be able to come to Warsaw in person and talk to us in such a panel next year. So thank you very much.